It's a workout. There. Put this to so that the painting is facing out. All the tar that comes through the ceiling.
Oh, I didn't even notice that.
Yeah. It's not really, like it's just, it gets really long, but it's not goopy, even though it looks goopy. I just think it's such a cool building. My name is Amy Dreyer, and we're currently in my downtown studio. I have a show coming up at Elevation Gallery in Canmore, and I wanted to talk a little bit about the show and the work and my themes. The show is called Rebuild, Renew, and I made it as a response to a few things. One is this children's book that I read a lot, that I've been reading a lot to my son this past year, and it's called What We Will Build. And this was written during sometime in 2020 during COVID, as a response, I think, to COVID, and kind of what we will build in this time, this difficult time, kind of building love and building these spaces of imagination and sort of protective places, and building courage against fear and things like that. So I found this book really inspiring, and kind of it really informed this body of work. So basically I wanted to talk a little bit about some of the paintings in the show. There's quite a few paintings of structures, of cabins that are being built, that are partly not quite done, in the process of being built. There's a lot of the cabins have ladders leaning up against them, and people kind of working on them, or the reference to sort of the open part of the cabin that's still unfinished, and the birds flying into the cabin, and kind of this this idea of the cabin, the simple space being built. And there were references to that in this book as well, kind of the father and daughter building a home and building memories for themselves. So in the time of COVID, and hopefully coming out of it soon, I'm thinking of ideas related to rebuilding and renewal, and sort of restructuring our society and our spaces, and what we will build out of this time. So I also have this painting here. It was inspired by a structure that's in the bird sanctuary in Calgary, and it's an old brick building. And I went down with a friend, and we kind of explored the building, and it seemed like there was so much history there, and that the people who had lived there were part of this space. And I think that's the other thing that I find really intriguing and interesting about structures and buildings and spaces, is that it's not just the building itself, but it's the people that have been part of that space that make it what it is, and give it that sense of its history. So the people are in this building, you can kind of see them in the window looking out, and so they're part of that. And there's also some paintings of gardens, of course, because that's such a big part of my life. And part of the gardens are kind of flattened, like the flowers are flattened at the bottom, and then there's other flowers that are kind of rising out of that. So there's this sense of the connection of life and death. And I actually, quite a few years ago, had to bury this small bunny in my garden, and I was quite sad to do that. But I found it really interesting, because a lot of flowers have grown in that particular place, and I feel that there's a strong connection between life and death, and the garden is really shows that. that it's all interconnected. So these particular garden pieces are sort of the flattened portions at the bottom, and then the flowers growing out of that. So there's also a large painting of another cabin, and I'm really interested in blueprints. I've always really liked blueprints, and kind of the drawings that the buildings will be, the drawing references that the buildings will become. And so this particular painting shows, kind of references that drawing, that blueprint, and then the building coming out of that and reflecting that, you know, that connection between the process, the original ideas, and then what comes from those ideas. So that's kind of the theme of the show, is the rebuilding, the renewal, new hope, new possibilities. So yeah, that's my show in short.